song is going to be for a Persian green meat stew. It's known as Ghormeh Sabzi. It's a very famous dish of Iran and beloved. There are few ingredients that are going to be a little bit less familiar to many Western chefs and cooks. So I want to run through what those items are before we jump in. There are two main ingredients that define the flavor profile of Ghormeh Sabzi. One of these is dried limon Omani or Omani lime. This is a lime dried in the desert. And I was unable to find it whole, which is the preferred way. You poke a hole in it and stick that in. Excuse me. I was able to find some dried lime instead, and that's fine. We'll just have to adjust the amount. The other ingredient, which I could not locate easily, is actually fenugreek leaf, which has again, a very unique flavor profile and defines it. So unfortunately, not my preference, I have bought a frozen package of the herbs traditionally used in there, and I'm going to use about half of this, not for the herbs, but as a whole, but to get that. The other ingredients are a little more familiar. I'm going to use the greens of leeks, cilantro. This you may also not know. This is a garlic scape. Garlic chives are used. If you have regular onion chives in your yard, you could use those just as effectively. Additionally, kidney beans are one of the main ingredients, and you can use canned for this, or alternatively, you can just use some dried beans, which is what I will use. Additional spices are turmeric, flavoring with the onion, and of course the beef for the stew. So those are the main ingredients: salt, pepper, all the normal sorts of things. But let's get started and get an opportunity to see this very unusual and deeply beloved dish of the Persian kitchen. Alright, we are now going to begin to cook the onion. And these onions are just going to be put into our pan, sauteed up so they begin to soften. And then at that point, I'm going to put in a couple of teaspoons of our turmeric for color and flavor. And then we're going to sear the beef in there as well. Ghormeh Sabzi can be made with lamb as well as beef. We're going with a beef version today. I figure while I love lamb, not everyone does, so this is a good way for it to work for others. And we'll just stir that up a little bit, beginning to cook. I'm going to cut open the meat while that just simmers away over there. Very nice. I'm taking the meat out, and you could rinse it if you wanted. I'm going to use a paper towel and just dry it off, because I find that it cooks a little bit better that way. As you all watch the onions, there's something so nice about onions, right? It is, the onion alone is such an amazing teacher about the alchemy of food. Raw onion is bracing, has brightness and sharpness, all on its own. Cooked, it starts to mellow and just leave that sugar. If you cook it even further so it caramelizes, you get deep sugar. So the effects of heat on a single humble root are really rather amazing, and one of the beautiful things about cooking. So that's going pretty nicely here. You can see I'm going to give it just another minute, because again, basic lesson for cooking is you don't want to rush that. The other dish I'm going to be making with this is a Persian rice, and I am going to parboil the rice in water that's just partially cooked, take it out, and then work to create a nice crusty bottom on there. And we'll talk about that dish a little bit later also. This dish in total, or this meal in total, is going to take about an hour and a half, because we're really letting the beef cook and soften and melt into it. I also, because I decided to use a red bean instead of canned kidney beans, I have that going in a pressure cooker as well. So now, these are now cooked. They're beginning to get a little bit of golden color. I'm going to add a couple of my teaspoons of turmeric in here. mix this all up, and then I'll be ready to throw in my beef right after that. And turmeric, like, you know, has a certain dusty flavor to it on its own. The cooking in the oil, as with many herbs, and we've talked about that, lets it bloom, lets the essential oils get sort of revivified after having grown tired on the shelf. You can see the onions are a beautiful color now, and on top of that, we can put our beef. And that's gonna cook about probably 5-10 minutes, because I want that to get nice brown color in there again. So we'll give it a little bit of a stir, mix things up, and we'll come back in just a few minutes and see how we're doing with that as we move on with our day. Okay, we have our water boiling now to make our rice. Do about 3 teaspoons of salt to the water. It's always fun when you know it is the boiling water to see how it just sort of explodes for a second. The advantage of cooking rice this way, apart from the fact that it's necessary to create the tahdig, the crispy bottom of the Persian rice, is that you don't have to worry about the rice sticking together, which is a fear many people who don't have experience with rice cookery have. So long as you don't crowd the pot, and I've got about 12 cups of water here, and I'm only going to put in about 3 cups of rice in here, you don't have to worry about it. Each grain of rice will be able to swim, if you will, in the water. And we're only going to cook it again for about 7 minutes or so. For those of you who do cook rice, you'll know about 15 minutes is our normal amount. So we're really just cooking halfway, and that will allow us then to add it to the pot, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later and create that beautiful crispy bottom that is so beloved and such an essential part of the tahdig, of the rice culture of Iran. I've thrown the rice, the basmati rice, long grain basmati, really important, has such a beautiful aroma. I even saw online one person who will mix a little bit of jasmine with the basmati to emphasize some of the aromatic qualities that some of these long grain rices have. And because it's thrown into a pot full of a lot more water than rice, every grain gets to swim on its own. That means that the layer of starch that naturally is part of the polished rice has a chance to come off. If you were in Asian food, we want that starch here. That's what lets it clump together and allows us to eat it with chopsticks. But this is a very different type of kitchen, different cuisine in other words, and so that's an important aspect. You can cook rice the entire way actually like this until it's tender, 10, 12, 14 minutes, what have you, and then strain it off and you'll have perfectly cooked rice. It's all separate grains. So please don't buy converted rice, you know, like a certain uncle's rice. The flavor is really strange, and there are other ways to achieve perfect rice without doing that. This is certainly one of those methods, and if you've never cooked rice that way, just like you would with a pasta, there's nothing easier, really. All right, so the rice is cooked now about 6 minutes. I've taken out a few grains. If I just sort of press against it, I'll see that it's just cooked through, but still quite firm. I want to stop this right now, really important. So I'm just going to strain it over the sink, and you'll see the rice grains all nice and perfectly separate and cooked. That's it, and that's going to be perfect for making our tahdig, in which I'll get a heavy bottom pan. I'm going to put that in there, a little oil on the bottom, the rice on top. I'm going to put some saffron soaked in water on it to give a color, and the whole rice should not be colored, just parts of it in this particular recipe. So it's, again, very simple way to cook rice. If you wanted to serve it straight out this way, you could let it cook another minute or two. Some people would add a little bit of margarine or butter at the end for additional flavor or savoriness if you want. Really up to you, but wonderfully simple, clear way to cook rice. puffy, pure white basmati rice and make our tahdig. I've put a couple of tablespoons of oil in the bottom of our little cocotte, our little pan. I'm going to heat that oil up, and that's just going to get it hot so that when the rice hits it, it begins to form the crust. While that's happening, I'm going to take the saffron I'm going to use. I'm just going to add a little warm water to it to let it steep, and that's going to give up some of its color that I can add on to the rice as it goes. A number of different ways to do it. Some people like to shape it into a little bit of a mound or pyramid. Some people do it directly across. But once that's in, once I've sprinkled the saffron water on top, I'm going to take a clean cloth that's been rinsed and wrung out under water, and that's going to go between the rice and on top of the pot afterwards, just like this. We'll open it up, and then this will just sort of go up along the edges. That protects the rice. It gives it a very, very slow, even heat. And what we're going to do is take that and switch this to the lower simmer and move the beef stew forward so that we can take a look at finishing that. So as that oil is heating and it's just about there, I'm going to rinse my rag. Adds a little water, helps a little bit of steam happen, prevents this from absorbing all the water that's in the rice. So put that down there. I'm now going to shake that a little bit into a nice pyramid sort of color. I'm going to move my heat down to low temperature. Some people will, depending on what sort of tahdig they use, they might use a piece of lavash or flat pita bread on the bottom of this. That creates something very nice. Some people will mix yogurt or butter or ghee into it. That's also all very nice and well. So I'm going to take my saffron. I'm just going to sort of pour down in some different directions just to make this a little bit fun. When you get to the bottom, if you want, you can add a little more water and extract a little more color. Again, this is well dried, so that's all just fine. I'm going to go back like that, and hopefully you can see that very well. Let me just tilt that pan for you a little bit. All right, I'm going to turn the heat off just for right now so I don't run into any problems. Lay this on top. Put my pan, which fits in very nicely there, by the way, on these four sides. And I'm going to now move that to the rear here over to my simmer. Put that on the lowest temperature there. And now we're going to take a look at our beef stew and see where we're going with that. So I put in half the herbs already. And that's been cooking about 30 minutes or so. We're going to add the rest of the herbs. And we're going to add the Omani lime. This really is a unique sort of beef stew or meat stew in world cuisine. There really isn't anything quite like it, I don't think. So we just mix that in. And now if we were doing the whole lime, we would have already put that in a little bit earlier. This is a little bit more potent. I'm going to use just a heaping tablespoon. Sprinkle it here and there. You can always add a little bit more in the last 10 minutes of cooking if we need to be. And we want to make sure that this is, the stew has enough water but isn't drowning in its grazing liquid as we go. And the beef is about 2/3 of the way cooked right now. I probably give another 35-45 minutes for that. I have about 45 minutes for the rice as well. So in theory, everything's going to come out at exactly the same time. So I think what's one of the things that's just fascinating is how much creativity the human species has shown about food. I fully believe that one of the things that separates us from animals is the way that we actually transform food. There are animals who clean food and we'll prepare it to some degree, but the level of creativity that we apply to it is part of human culture, and it's how we come together. Right now, of course, we can't be together in exactly the same way, so it's really important that we show in our kitchens what we're doing and making the food. And I owe this particular demo to a gentleman named Reza, who worked front of the house for me when I ran Chevron's world headquarters down on Market Street in San Francisco. I think they're in the East Bay right now. But he's the first one who showed me how to make tahdig and Persian food like this. So as I'm making this dish, I'm thinking of him, and hope that he concluded his college education all those many years ago and has done well in his life. Reza, if you're out there, if you see this video ever, give me a holler. It'd be great to reconnect with you. Okay, it is time now for the unveiling of our finished Ghormeh Sabzi and the crispy rice as well. So let's take a look at what we got. All right, there is that beautiful green herb stew with the it's sort of a, it's not a kidney bean that I was using. This is a rare Mexican bean, but kidney beans are fine. In some ways, outer husk is a little bit more tender than these, but these have a wonderful chestnut-like flavor. And now let's take a look at our rice, which has been very carefully in there. So there it is, and we'll just flip that over in a second and make a plate. I flipped out the rice. That is just exactly what you want out of this classic Persian rice dish. And it's really just, the secret is doing a nice slow cooking for that to come out with that beautiful golden crust. I'll tell you that when you make this rice dish like that, people are gonna fight over the crispy parts. But that's okay, because it's all about bringing us together and having good food as family, as friends. It's Rob D here, Chef D. Be safe, be happy, enjoy your time with one another.